You are now listening to the Insight Fantasy Sports Podcast.
Welcome all and welcome back into the Insight NFL Podcast. Tuesday, week 12 is finished, 25th of November. Mav, we're looking ahead for week 13 waiver-wise. It's just 2 weeks left of the regular season. I've just realized that one of my redraft teams has absolutely no chance of making the playoffs. I'm trying to come to terms with that, but one less league to worry about. How are you feeling as we head into week 13?
Yeah, fairly good. A lot, well, maybe 80% of my leagues at the moment looking pretty good. So a lot of playoff berths in what looks like it's going to be happening. So I think 7 of the 9, maybe even 8 of the 9, to be honest, should be in the playoffs. So that's a really positive view. And then there's one team that's probably a bit off it, one game out. So probably unlikely that team makes it. But well, you can't win them all. But yeah, it's been good. It's been fun. Today's game was a mixed bag of a lot, really. Mixed bag of everything, really. A lot of bad play on the way, and then obviously CMC. Well, again, he was okay, I suppose. Probably yardage wise, he was fine, but it's not a bad thing. So, but no, all good, man. All good. Looking forward to ripping through some waivers tonight and trying to find some hidden gems in there that might have gone unnoticed.
Yeah, there's a couple in there, but still it's a bit of a dire week and makes it a little bit harder because there is no teams on bye with Thanksgiving, so that even a lot of guys, you might even need to spend as much trying to pick them up off waivers because people have got a whole assortment of players back on deck. Matt, before we get into it, I do just have to ask, you mentioned you can't win all the leagues, but I'll tell you what, that Creators League, that's probably the number one league I want to win at the moment. We've got, yourself, Secko, and me, top 3 currently. You're at 11-1. You're absolutely blessed with the matchups. That's for sure. But you can't write the schedule. How are you feeling on that league in particular? I mean, just looking at it, points against, I'm nearly at 300 higher than you just in PA. So sometimes you get the rubs, sometimes you don't.
Mate, obviously I've got a pretty good defensive team here on the other side. So no, it's I've been pretty lucky, to be honest. We looked at this team obviously when we drafted this team, and to be honest with you, mate, I wasn't really too impressed with it at all. So somehow it's 11-1. I'll take it.
Yeah, and I think you'll get a free win. Week 14, I just looked. We're facing each other, but I'm without CMC, Kittle, Bryce Young, and I'm making excuses early, but, I just want to put it out there. That's just the luck just keeps on shining over for old Mavs team.
I'm missing a few too. Garrett Wilson, Dalton Kincaid, Marvin Harrison. I've got a few out too, my friend. And still managed to play Bam Knight, Kareem Hunt, Juwan Jennings, and still get some W's.
Yeah, well, Juwan Jennings, we might even just jump straight into that, Mav. But before we do, if you did miss last night's review and recovery, link is in below for you. We did it in a Supercoach lens. And just quietly, I'm pretty sure you said CMC's over and under was like 42 or 45 points. That's where you kind of set that line. Finished up with 46, so you've got that crystal ball. You're giving it a nice rub, but we'll get into the rewind for the final game of Week 12. So we had the Panthers traveling over to San Fran, a nice large travel for the Panthers, and Secko touched on it. Usually these teams that have to travel coast to coast don't perform too well at the gate, and that was the case here with the Panthers. We can probably start off with them. Bryce Young, couple of picks on his side. Mullin didn't really do too much in the first half, besides I think in the second or the third quarter, he caught a nice little 29-yard touchdown. That was his second catch of the day. He had 35 yards on 2 and a score. You're very grateful for the score there. Rico Dowdle was the top yardage receiver in this one for the Panthers, so it kind of paints a clear picture. He had 4 for 36 and also 6 for 38 on the ground. Not much else happening between this one. All in all, very gross from the Panthers. Bryce Young threw a nice 169 yards, but 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions, like I said. Can't really do too much on that. Anything from you, Mav, on the Panthers in this one?
No, it wasn't really much in it from the Panthers, was there? I mean, all in all, it was a pretty disappointing game across the board. I'm going to loop in the Niners obviously in there as well. It was quite boring. There wasn't really anything to take out of it, I suppose. Apart from Brock Purdy really being crap, that's
Mm.
probably the other side to it, which probably screams more than the Panthers. But the Panthers, mate, I can't believe they're in playoff contention. Sitting at a pretty 6-6, I suppose. And I just can't work out how they've done it. Bryce Young's been very inconsistent for majority of the season. Showed spurts, but for the most part, very inconsistent. And then Rico Dowdle, as you said, didn't really do much. And then obviously through the air, they didn't really do much in general. So all in all, pretty gross. And then on the Niners side of things, mate, it was probably slightly grosser, I suppose. I mean, Brock Purdy was horrible with 3 picks and only 1 TD, but Christian McCaffrey had a lot of the work, 89 yards on the ground and 53 through the air, and with 1 touchdown. And outside of really CMC, they didn't really have anything else going there, the Niners either. George Kittle was all right, 6 for 10 for 78 yards, but outside of that, there wasn't really anything that really put my mind away in this game at all, in terms of any fantasy scores. You look at, for example, Jameer Gibbs in the week, and no one came close to that one. So, I did call it, mate. I said 42.5, I think was the line. 42 and it was the line. The CMC, he got 46. So, not far off. But, all in all, mate, it was a pretty disappointing game.
Yeah, pretty gross one. And for the Panthers, I was trying to work out, why did they only give Rico Dowdle 6 carries? She was looking pretty sharp, but 49ers dominated possession in this one, nearly 38 minutes to 22 minutes. The Panthers, they were 1 from 7 in third down, so that definitely does kill drives. But yeah, all in all, gross game. I was hoping for a little bit more with the 49ers not having a good defense, and kind of on the same with the Panthers besides JC Horn, who got a couple of picks today. But not too much more to add on that, Mav. It's the final game of Week 12, a stinker in prime time. But we have Thanksgiving coming up. We've got I think we've got 3 games for us on Friday.
Yeah.
One on Saturday, which I absolutely love to see. This time of the year is perfect. You don't have to worry about, working from home, as some people say, myself included. So, I can just do it carefree, kick the feet up. Phone won't be anywhere near me.
The only bad side to it is we lose more games on Monday. You get up Monday morning, and you want to see a morning slate of 8, 9, 10 games, and I think 10 games. I think it usually is, and you won't get that this week. Obviously, with the games a bit more spread out over the week. But look, Thanksgiving is always a good. You can get up early on the Thursday and watch the early game if you wanted to as well. So Thursday or Friday, our Friday is obviously a fantastic day of football. We don't really celebrate Thanksgiving over here, but we'll celebrate it in a football sense, and it's almost football heaven on one day, back to back to back. So it's standalone games too. So fun to watch.
Love to see the standalone, and we are absolutely gifted with Week 13, but we will get to those in our primer, the final show of the week on Thursday. Mav, let's jump straight into the waiver wire. Now, the number one name kicking off with running backs, pardon me, for myself, Devin Neal. I think he's an absolute steal if you can pick him up off waivers. It's been confirmed that Alvin Kamara sprained his MCL. He's going to miss a couple of weeks at least, but I think there's every chance that the Saints just kind of shut him down for the rest of the year. They've got Devin Neal in there. Taysom Hill had about 10 carries over the week or on Monday, which I hate to see. But Devin Neal had a lot in the receiving game in this one. So I know for myself, I'm playing a whole lot of PPR leagues. So Devin Neal, I think, is just absolute money. And I mentioned on our 6 must moves to make that dropped last week. I really liked Alvin Kamara, just his rest of season schedule. Of course, that's gone out the window with that injury. But Devin Neal, he's the next man up. Being a rookie, being the season's tanked, I think that'd be stupid not to give him a lot of the work. And that's what I'm kind of projecting moving forward. So for me, he's my clear number 1 running back. How do you feel on Devin Neal? And is there anyone else for you that kind of tops that list or a close second?
Funny you say about Devin Neal, actually, mate. If you look at the trending report on Sleeper at the moment, Devin Neal actually isn't even in the top 10, believe it or not. I think I've got that correct. He's only been in the top 10 there. Damian Pierce is actually number 1 trending running back, and he's on the Kansas City Chiefs at the moment, I believe. Very interesting that Devin Neal's not getting much attention in that regard. Maybe that will change over the next 24 hours or so. But Kamara is meant to be missing some time and everything like that. So we do expect Devin Neal to be coming in and being that next man up. Kendra Miller's obviously out, so he's not the next man up. So it's really him and Estime is all they've got there in the running back room there. Even Devin Neal, mate, on the weekend, he did have a receiving line of 7 for 5 for 43. So if you're talking about his receiving upside in PPR leagues, there's absolutely opportunity there for him to see plenty of work, and 74% of the snaps he had as well. So he's the clear second or next man up. So absolutely, and being a rookie too, mate. He's going to get thrown in the deep end and seeing what he can do for the rest of the year. Maybe he plays for the rest of the year, who knows? But I think for the short term anyway, Devin Neal is a must roster and should be absolutely your focus point if you're going to do it. And then we've got a couple other running backs after that. I mean, Tootin is still hovering around, I suppose, but Etienne was all right on the weekend. So that'll save Tootin. That'll save Etienne for probably another week or two. But again, he saw 7 carries in that game. So again, he's sort of hovering around the mark, isn't he? Chris Rodriguez is another one here on this list. That if you're running back needy, he could be an option. Again, that room's very murky and very uncertain. It sort of changes week to week and who gets all the snaps and who doesn't. So at the moment, it looks like it is Chris Rodriguez getting the work. And he could be the guy that gets majority of the carries. But again, it's not really a situation where I would like to be depending on either. You know what I mean? He's going to probably see under 50% snaps still in games, and all in all, I think it's going to be probably a mixed bag of Bill, Rodriguez, and McNichols. Obviously, still hovers around too as an option there for him too. So there's not really a clear RB1 in Washington.
Yeah, it isn't. Makes it hard for us to try and navigate that situation there. I just think Rodriguez probably the best chance to getting that end zone work. So if there is an opportunity, he might rip off 50 yards and a score, but you're happy with that if you're caught in a pinch at running back. Only 30% rostered. He had 16 touches the last time they played in week 11 compared to 10 touches from Ja'Cory Crosby-Merritt. Gee, I tell you what, hopefully you are cashed out from Bill Crosby-Merritt back in, but when it was announced that Austin Eckler went on IR, I mean, his value's just gone through the absolute gurgler. Again, on that too, I know we touched on Devin Neal, but he's only at 10% rostered. So, not trending, like you said, widely available. Bashal Tootin, you're right. Travis Etienne absolutely killed him on the week. Besides that, Mav, I mean, it's a bit of a wasteland. The only other name I kind of like is Dylan Sampson. 7 for 23 on the ground last week against the Raiders and 2 for 59 plus a touchdown on a long play. Again, I don't want to chase last week's points, but if Shador, he's been sacked plenty of times already in his couple of starts that he's had. Hopefully that game plan moving forward is for him to get the ball out more. And I think Sampson probably profiles as that pass catching back more so than Judkins. So besides that, I mean, he's at 11%. I think it's time to talk handcuffs as well, Mav, this part of the year. I know for me, I've got CMC in a few leagues. We know he's been made of glass the last couple of years. So Brian Robinson Jr. has been a massive focus on that point. Because in my head, if CMC goes down, the only person that is going to be able to replace him in that system is Brian Robinson Jr. He's 35% owned. You can pick him up everywhere. And also Blake Corum for the Rams. He looks really good, starting to split work with Kyron. But if Kyron does go down, well, then Blake Corum's going to get the lion's share. But it's really hard to think of any other handcuffs besides that you can really, rely on if the number one in front of them does go down.
Well, mate, Kenny Gainwell would be another one if he's available. If we're talking handcuffs, he's 72% owned. He's had some good back-to-back weeks, really, in the league. But he's looking like he might even take over sooner rather than later. The way he's going, his role keeps increasing every week, and he's benefiting and obviously taking that and just really rising to the opportunity. So Kenny Gainwell is available. I think he's worth a roster spot for sure. Also, make sure and check very, very closely to see if Trey Benson is on the wire. If Trey Benson is on the wire, he's a must-add. He'd be my number one ad for the week if he was available. He is rostered in 68% of leagues, so I imagine he'd be stashed in IRs or deep on someone's bench. But if he's available, I think he's a must own. He is looking likely that he'll be back this week, and the running back room at Arizona is decimated. Dan Mercado's out. Bam Knight got injured. So Trey Benson has got bell cow potential workload coming his way under Brissett, who we like as well. So as the backup, or now the QB1 at Arizona, taking over Kyler Murray. So let's hope that Trey Benson can be cleared this week to play, because I think he's got a pretty good run home. Tampa Bay, LA Rams, Houston, Atlanta, Cincinnati. It's just a lot of opportunity. A couple of bad matchups in there, but again, just opportunity-wise, maybe just on dump-offs or just, maybe even gets goal line carries here or there. He breaks out for one big or long touchdown. There's so many scenarios where you can see Trey Benson being a maybe even top 20 running back for the remainder of the year, top 15 running back for the remainder of the year if he's cleared. But yeah, the sky's really the limit and opportunity's really much there for himself. I don't think anyone's taking work off him.
Yeah, we haven't seen him since week 4. That was the only game that we saw without James Conner. He left in week 3. But even still, week 4, 55% of the snaps. He had 13 touches, gave you 10.5 fantasy points in 4 PPR. I believe DeMarcado did get a long touchdown too in that one off him. So you'd love to see Benson just come in, take over this workload. I know I'm sick of playing the Bam Knight, DeMarcado, or Michael Carter game each week to see how that plays out. He could dominate in week 17 against Cincinnati. If Benson is on the bench, I'd be willing to unload everything, just about. Even if Devin Neal, if I am caught in a pinch, he's another one that would be close to unloading everything in special PPR league. Are you kind of around that same point too, Mav? I know this point of the year, 2 weeks regular season, I'm probably going to backtrack a bit. I always like to have just a couple dollars of fab left just for the final weeks, because you never know. A lot of other managers might just be completely zipped and you can kind of sneak in if you need to. But 99%, I'd be willing to walk into the playoffs with a couple bucks if I need to, just to drop on Benson or Neal if they are available.
Yeah, I agree. We're at the start, we're end of the year now, where there's only really 4, maybe 5 weeks left of matchups, or maybe even 2 if you're on the fringe of making the playoffs. So, I absolutely agree with you on unloading the clip. If you're not going to do it now, when are you going to ever do it? So, at some point, you can't take your remaining fabs next season. So you may as well unload and have a crack at it. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But if it does, then you look like a genius. So absolutely couldn't agree more.
We'll head into wide receivers, just recapping running backs. Trey Benson, if he's available, he's the number 1 priority ad. Devin Neal and then Chris Rodriguez in that mix if you're caught in a pinch at running back. Wide receivers, Mav, and we'll start off with our cover for tonight. Christian Watson, I can't believe he's only at 52% rostered currently. He's the clear number 1 wide receiver for Green Bay, has the most upside any given week. He can score a long bomb touchdown on any play, and that just kind of, for that, picking him off of the waivers, that's just an absolute gold. Yeah, leading target receiver in week 12. There is rumors that Jaden Reed is going to begin practicing this week. He's another one we could probably throw in. He's at 41%. You can look to stash him as well. But even still, I think Watson and Reed are probably going to take over once fully healthy for Reed in this Green Bay offense. We know Josh Jacobs dealing with that injury. He should be back to full health this week, and that offense is firing. But it's very hard to look past Watson if he's available as the number 1 wide receiver for this week.
Yeah, agreed, mate. Very much agree with that. Matthew Golden really hasn't taken over, has he? So Jaden Reed, obviously, is probably the one that could take opportunity off him. I think Jaden Reed's a pretty good wide receiver, and obviously can be used in different formations and in different lineups, and he makes do of what he can do. So he's not too far back. Another one that I really like is John Mechie, mate. In a team that is crying out for pass catches. Obviously, the Garrett Wilson. John Mechie has really sort of exploded over the last couple of weeks. He's the number one currently at the Jets, and look, I imagine Garrett Wilson might be returning back for this season. I think they'll just shut him down. No point bringing him back. He did land on IR. They did suspect he'd be out for about 4 or 5 weeks, but by the time he comes back, they're still losing games. What's the actual point of bringing him back? You may as well put him on ice for the rest of the year. And John Mechie still has something to prove. He's been stuck in Houston for years, couple of years, and now he's got an opportunity to blossom in an offense that still sucks, but again, he's seeing a lot of snap percentage. He's seeing a fair bit of targets as well compared to what he's used to. And he's had back-to-back touchdowns. So look, I'm not desperate on owning John Mechie, might I add. I'm not sitting out there going, you must add him, you must add him, you must add him. But if he's available, I think, and you've got roster space and you're not losing someone who's better, and I think he's definitely worth an option to pick up if you're wide receiver needy. They do have Atlanta next week, so they're pretty good on wide receivers, generally speaking. And then Miami, Jacksonville, New Orleans, New England. So the rest of the season schedule seems like it's okay. Week 13 might be a bit of a struggle though. But obviously you'd want Tyrod Taylor being the starting QB there at the Jets and not Justin Fields. Because Justin Fields will probably have a game where he has 80 passing yards again, or less than 80 passing yards and looks complete junk. So you do have to hope that Tyrod Taylor retains the role for the remainder of the year and he's passing it down the throat of John Mechie because that is a better option.
Massive target share for week 12 for John Mechie. 7 targets and only 28 attempts for Tyrod. I mean, 222 passing yards. That is night and day when it comes to Justin Fields and what they had. Mechie plays in the slot as well, so if you are in that PPR formats, gives you a very nice floor. Chris Godwin as well. He's a bit of a higher ad. He's at 61%. I'd be checking to see if he does get dropped when waivers passed. I mean, people might get a little bit put off. He only played 36% of snaps, but this was his first game back since week 4, I believe. He'll look to ramp up. I think Mike Evans, he's a slim hope at joining before the end of the regular season. So Godwin should be able to help out down the stretch. Might take a couple of weeks. He might only come good when week 15 and the playoffs kicks around, but 61%, I'd definitely be checking to see if he is out there. A name if you are caught in a pinch for this week. Maybe you're the T. Higgins owner, perhaps, because he's all but ruled out with a concussion. Andre Yoshivas, he's at 37%. Definitely a spot start. Once T comes back in a deck, you wouldn't really look at him whatsoever. But up against Baltimore on Thanksgiving, potentially Joey B back, could be a shootout, and Joe will need to lean on more than Jamar Chase in that one. So yeah, Yoshivas, I'd be pretty keen on if I was caught in a pinch. Mav, any other names that you really want to mention here of guys that we're looking at under 50% in terms of waiver pickups?
Jaden Higgins, mate, is continuing to keep on going. He is pretty much now the wide receiver 2 behind Nico Collins. It's now pretty much confirmed with the way they're using him and the snap percentage that's increased over the last few weeks. To be fair, though, his play has been better ever since Stroud's been out. But Davis Mills has definitely used him to a better way than what Stroud has. So Stroud is still in concussion protocol too. I don't know if that's a sign for or anything like that. But I don't know how a guy who's been in protocol for 3 weeks nearly. That is unbelievable. But Davis Mills looks like he's okay if he's the one that's throwing him the ball. I actually don't mind Davis Mills. I've actually really enjoyed him in a really solid defensive lineup that they've got. But he seems like he's actually the better quarterback in Stroud at the moment. So I'd almost keep rolling with the hot hand at that point. But Jade Higgins, I think is an absolute smash option. He's had in the last 3 weeks when Stroud's been out, he's had 7 targets, and 9 targets. Back to back weeks. So plenty of targets. Nico Collins, I think, is a bit banged up still at the moment. No, he's nursing an injury, but it seems like he's okay. If there's anything that happens to Nico Collins and Higgins number one, then obviously the sky's the limit. But you probably want Nico Collins playing just to make sure he doesn't get the best corner every week.
Yeah, Jaden Higgins. I mean, as a rookie too, you like to see him progress more and that, as he gets more integrated into the NFL. Mav, with the Texans and CJ Stroud, I think it could be a soft benching. They've won 4 out of the last 5 with Davis Mills. He's looked much better. I mean, crazier things have happened. JJ McCarthy's had a start for as long as he has so far. So I mean, yeah, it could very well happen with long neck Davis Mills under center.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I mean, he's been throwing the ball. We love to see it for our receivers. Couple other dart throws if you are caught in a pinch. Tyler Lockett, it's gross. He's old, but he's at 10%. Season high 76% of the snaps. That was even between the two teams that he's been on this year. 4 for 62. Chip Kelly's out the door. There's some optimism with that. You usually see some teams fire up after a coordinator's been at the door, even a head coach. Also, Luther Burden for the Bears. Season high 51% of the snaps. 3 for 46. I feel like if you're not projected to win or you're a bit of an underdog in a week, I'd be happy to roll that with Luther Burden because he could, strike lightning in a bottle, catch a long bomb touchdown. He's got that kind of ability in his arsenal. So that's probably the way I'd be leaning to if I had to. But yeah, any of those names that you'd be more keen on rather than the others?
Yeah, I don't really have a lot of interest in Burden, to be honest with you, personally. Again, they still have DJ Moore, still have Robert Dunze, they still have Loveland, they still have Swift. Like there's a lot of ball to go around, and that was my concern at the start of the year, and it's my concern now. So, there's a lot of upside there with Luther Burden, but just not a lot of opportunity. So, I think that's a big problem, and I'm not really too keen on that. So, outside of that, mate, there's probably not a lot else there that I really like at wide receiver. Keep a close eye on DK as well out of Tennessee. He's had a good week, but it seems like it's very up and down. He has one good week in every 4 at this point. So, he's still a rookie, still learning the game. And I think he had a special teams touchdown to go along with it this week. So, depending on what stat lines and what scoring systems you play in your leagues, you might be able to get benefited from special teams ability. If he does, then I think he's a must roster because you'll get special points or more points for returning yards. But if not, then I don't think there's a world where you have to roster DK. But again, I'd just keep a close eye on him and put him into your watch list and see if he can string together a good couple of games because he might be rosterable then the following week.
Yeah, and hopefully this week with no teams on bye, you don't really need to dive as deep as all these names we've given out. Hopefully the top few, you'll be able to snag them up if you are cornered a pinch in these positions. But tight ends, Mav, this week, we've got a couple of nice names that I'm pretty excited about. Kicking things off, I know for me, I've got Devin Neal running back, Christian Watson wide receiver as my must-adds. For tight end, I really like Brenton Strange. He might cost you a little bit more after what he's done after missing a lot of the season since week 5 from injury. First game back on deck, 71% of the snaps right at the gate. 5 targets, 5 catches for 93 yards in this one. They've got a nice rest of season schedule too, at least over the next few weeks. Tennessee, Indy, and the Jets. Very exploitable for that tight end position. He's got every chance that it could be the number 1 target for the Jags, especially at BTJ. Up in the air, what's going on with him. I mean, they're still contending. You'd think they'd kind of bring him back if they needed to, or if they could, rather with his health. But Trevor Lawrence, I think he's very, very mid at best. So Brenton Strange, that shorter area of the field, middle of the field, might be a better solution for him. But how are you feeling about the tight end landscape this week?
Yeah, Brenton Strange is obviously back in action. Just keep in mind, Brian Thomas, they reckon it's a good chance to play this week.
Yep.
So, look, that'll take away some targets away from Brenton Strange, but I still think that he's probably the number 2. That Jacoby Myers has been pretty average for either team Jags or Vegas. And then Parker Washington, you expect probably to start simmering down just a little bit with now obviously Thomas coming back and Strange coming in or back into the lineup. So yeah, I mean Parker Washington's done a great job, but it's time to let these big boys come back in and take some targets off him. But yeah, I definitely agree. Brendan Strange is the top tight end option for the week. And again, ability wise, he's only 23, 24. The ability's there for him to. His receiving game's quite good. He came in as receiving tight end, so there's ability there. And if you're caught in a pinch near tight end, I think he's the guy.
Other names that we have here, Mav, and it's diving deep. Darren Waller, he's at 28%, looking to open up his practice window this week. Might be a couple of weeks ramp up, so more of a stash, mainly for that week 16 up against Cincinnati. The Bengals are leading the NFL defense stats with most touchdowns allowed to that tight end position. So Darren Waller, we know how much of a touchdown threat he is. If he is back and healthy, I'd love to play him in that week 16 matchup up against Cincy if you can. Dalton Schultz, one of your favorites from the last couple of weeks. He's still at 51%. Definitely can do a lot worse. A name that you probably get even easier than these other three, Isaiah Likely. He's at 11%. Does have the Bengals this week, and then has them again in week 15. So again, the matchup is just way too good at 11%. He could go off this week against them, and by that point, it's going to be too late. You won't be able to pick him up anymore. So how are you feeling on those remaining three names outside of Strange?
Yeah, I'm not really too big on Likely. Waller, probably not really too invested. Again, depends on when he's actually back, and if he's back this week, maybe. But I suppose they got they got the Saints, Jets, Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, Tampa Bay, so the schedule's actually quite juicy for the remainder of the year. So I suppose Darren Waller does have some value there with Tua just slinging it down the carelessly down in the center of the ground, and Waller should be around. But I think Strange is the top option to get. Waller would need to know more information, and then there's just nothing else for me after that. I generally don't have much interest. You can almost put in Colby Parkinson in there as well. If you wanted to, he's started the last 3 weeks. He's been pretty good, but with not a lot of targets there to really sort of get excited upon. He's just more of a red zone threat at this point, and that's how he's scoring his points. But outside of that, tight ends are not really providing too much on the wire this week.
It's gross. If only Cole Pitts was under 50% owned, and he'd be the clear number one name here that we've got.
It will be after the waivers go through.
Well, I'll be scared of those waivers, and if he's out there, you can do a whole lot worse. But quarterback, Mav, we've got a couple of options for Superflex. Also, one option as a 1 QB streamer if you need to. I mean, the Superflex guys, starting off Teddy Bridgewater, only if Baker misses time. We know he did miss the second half of that game, Monday primetime, Sunday Night Football over in the States. Teddy Bridgewater, he's been pretty capable. He's got a good array of weapons. Bucky Irving should be back as well for the Bucs this week, which is going to help. But they've got Arizona, the Saints, and Atlanta. So I don't mind him in a Superflex format if you are caught in a pinch. If you are the Baker owner, 0% rostered, probably won't cost you much. Mav, I want to get a temperature check on how you feel on Shedeur Sanders. Already named to be the starter again. I expect he's just going to be the starter the rest of the way. They've seen what they've had in Dylan Gabriel. Not a lot there, but Shedeur, 13% rostered in Sleeper. They've got San Fran this week at home. All it takes is a couple of big plays, a couple of connections with Bond. Maybe Judy gets involved. Another screen touchdown to a running back, and Shedeur is off to the races. So how are you feeling about those two as a Superflex option, in particular Shedeur?
I still don't think Shedeur's an option to start. I don't think he's an option to. He might be an option to maybe just roster just in case, but mate, to be honest with you, he was pretty lucky with that screenplay. That was
very lucky.
Half his points right there.
Yeah.
Other than that, he scores a big, probably 5 points in the game. So, Look, San Fran, despite them being pretty injury riddled on the defensive front, they still should do enough to be able to stop Shador, you'd imagine. So, look, if you want to roster him, cool. If you start him, then look, good luck.
Good luck. You're going to need it. But if you do need a one quarterback streamer, even if he's out there in Superflex, Jacoby Brissett, if he's out there in Superflex, he's the number one ad. I think he's at 51% rostered. That's mixing the two on Sleeper. But we'll loop in our quarterback streamers for this week, Mav. Jacoby Brissett, one quarterback if you're caught in a pinch up against Tampa Bay. Both defenses aren't really doing too much on either side of the ball in this one. And Brissett, he's been absolutely singing the ball. 44 passing attempts week 10, 57 in week 11, and 49 in week 12. Hasn't had under 18.5 fantasy points for the last 4 weeks. Super solid. Not going to nuke you whatsoever. It's a nice base. He would be the number one if he is available. Is there any other name out there for you in the quarterback streamer? Maybe a nice rookie. I've got a name here. It is Gross. Felt gross putting it out there, but he didn't look too bad last week.
I mean, when I look at this, I sort of look at matchups where I can, right? So, as much as I don't like Kirk Cousins, he's playing the Jets this week. So, if Drake London's playing healthy, maybe Kirk Cousins is an option, just for 1 week against the Jets, and then he can get rid of him. We're talking streamers here. Outside of that, you can always play Cam Ward potentially as well. Cam Ward, very up and down season, isn't he? 1 week he looks really good, and 1 week he looks really bad. So they got the Jags this week. So matchup wise, it's not too bad. He did come off a 23.94 game against the Seahawks, my Supercoach defense. So no surprise that that's happened. But if we're looking at matchups, the Jags should be a bit of a juicy one for him too.
He's added some nice running floor too last couple of weeks. 33 rushing yards against Houston in week 11, 37 yards on the ground, and also a score last week against Seahawks. So if he can give us 30 yards, that's 3 or so points, just as a nice little floor adder. Don't mind that. In terms of tight end streamers, Matt, for this week, I'm going to bang the drum again on Isaiah Likely, just purely against those Bengals. If you miss out on Bretton Strange and Dalton Schultz, don't mind Langley. Likely purely based on the matchup. I think he could get a touchdown, not guaranteeing it. Of course, gamble responsibly, but I don't mind him this week. Anybody else that sticks out for you in tight end if you are caught in a pinch?
No, not exactly. I mean, I always seem to put Zach Ertz in there, but he's coming up against Denver this week, so I don't think he's really much of an option at all. Dalton Schultz is always a nice little juicy one. I say that every week, but Dalton Schultz is. The last month or so hasn't been too bad. Had that one bad week this week against the Bills, but all in all, he seems to be scoring well every week, nearly. So he just gets underappreciated, Dalton Schultz, in this game. If I look really, really deeply and you want to have a bit of fun or something, you could almost go down the Taysom Hill route. He has maybe some backfield play here potentially. They do play Miami as well, and defensively they're not too great. So if you want to have a bit of fun and your season's over, and you might want to try and roll the dice on a tight end, and you got no one, Taysom Hill might be a bit of fun. I think that he's scoring. He'll have a season high next week in scoring, which is insane.
10 carries last week, and all in the goal line for the most part too. So up against Miami, every chance he leaks one in for a score, and you were very happy with that result as a tight end. But that really wraps us up for tonight, our waiver wire for week 13. Again, hopefully you don't really need to dive too deep into these guys with everybody back from the buys this week. But we've got a heap of buys next week, week 14. CMC, we're missing the Giants just off the top of my head. So it's always good to be prepared, be one step ahead of the curve, and even just stash these guys if you need to. So we'll be back, Mav, myself, and Secko tomorrow night, as per usual, with our Supercoach Trade Talk show with our Captain's Huddle tied in for the week. Mav, that'll do us, mate. It's a pleasure. as always. Well, thanks for tuning in. We'll see we'll see all of you. Gee, I'm just absolutely butchering at the end here. Tomorrow night when we're back here to do it all again.
Easy. Cheers, guys.